Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 858, we have Shirei, Shizo's Caretaker. Now, Shirei's job was to clean the battlefield, I believe, after. Anyway, the only downside of this particular card is the 5 mana casting cost. He's a 5 mana 2-2, but whenever a creature with power 1 or less is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step if Shirei is on the battlefield. So, you've got to get the 5 to cast it, and then you've got to keep Shirei on the board. Now, this is, I had no idea that this was a quote-unquote powerhouse deck. I just built it in a way that I thought would maximize the ability, and I am a terrible person. My poor fiance, bless her heart. I test a lot of these decks out against her one-on-one. Man, that was mean. Anyway, so the idea here is we want a lot of creatures with power 1 or less that either put themselves into the graveyard naturally or we need sacrifice outlets. So, first off, let's look at our sacrifice outlets, because that's the big one, right? Stuff that lets us sacrifice creatures. These are in no particular order. There's every category here. So this is just sacrifice. We've got innocent blood. If we're going to get our creature back, I don't care. You know, everybody else can sacrifice one too. And that tilt is bothering me. High market. Sack creature gain life. Doesn't matter. We can do it instant speed. We have the Blood Throne Vampire. You know, instant free sacrifice outlets is what I prioritized. I had to go with some payment ones, but the Viscera Seer, just a great card. Altar's Reap, some card draw, you know, at instant speed, sack that creature. Now, the beautiful part about Shirei is it happens at the beginning of each end step. So on my turn, at the end of my turn, I'm getting all my 1 powers back. At the end of my opponent's turn, I'm getting all my 1 powers back. So I want to keep sacrificing. You know, with this deck, I found that everybody's turn is my turn. Oh, it's sick. Solvianate. This one does not see a lot of play. I think this may be the first actual deck Solvianate's been in. But you can tap it to sack a black creature to get its mana back. Wow. Phyrexian Tower. I mean, it's just a good card, you know. Skullport Merchant, granted, you got to pay for it, but I didn't realize that was not going to be as big of a deal as it was, because you can sacrifice a treasure or a creature, and you mound. It's silly. Carrion Feeder, just sacking. The Culling the Weak. In the early game, if you've got your little creature that you don't care about, I do have some just generic creatures in here, but this gets you 4 mana to get you closer to playing Shirei. Lampad of Death Visuals, a sacrifice outlet, so it's Spark Harvest for removal. Ashnod's Altar, another really great sack outlet that's free. Bone Shards won't conform, it looks like. To Bone Shards, to Village Rites, Thought Picker Witch, and Disciple of Grizzlebrand. All 1 power creatures, the ones that are creatures, that also have sacrifice outlets. It's beautiful. Now, I want to talk about the one card that's not 1 power. Turmoil here, he's kind of the lieutenant of the deck, just because of what Turmoil does. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, you get a tapped zombie. I didn't draw Turmoil in my playthrough, but I had a lot of cards popping in and out of the graveyard. And similarly, the Desecrated Tomb is also another good one. Now, with all those sacrifice outlets, let's look at cards that, you know, when they come into play, they do a thing. You know, like Pilgrim's Eyes, to go get you that land. Big Game Hunter's going to shoot that big thing. Weapons Craft Enthusiast will always make 2 servos. Because we want this to be 0 or 1 power when it dies. And I like having those, 2 little servo homies there. Dusk Legion Zealot. When it ETBs, draw a card and lose a life. Now, I didn't realize exactly how many of that effect I had in here and how much it was happening. I did have a Reliquary Tower, and I needed it. I needed it because I had just a thick grip. Sky Scanner, same way. 1 power, so it's going to come back. I'm going to sack it, and then when it enters, I'm just going to keep drawing a card. And I'm probably going to do this on every player's turn. Sick. Burglar Rat. Enters the battlefield. Each opponent discards a card. That can make you a lot of friends. I was being facetious. Marsh Flitter, same thing as the Weapons Craft guy. It's a 1/1, so it's going to keep coming back. And it makes 2 goblins every time that we can then sack them. Bone Shredder. Now, Bone Shredder will sack itself if you don't pay the echo, but it ETBs and it tears something. So it's going to end up in the graveyard. It's a 1/1. We can just keep bringing it back. I know what you're thinking. What about whenever a creature you control dies? There's a ton of those, actually. Well, not really a ton. There's 5. Bastion of Remembrance. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1. You gain 1. What about a Vindictive Vampire? Another. I know this is not 1 power. This is one of the other big boys, quote unquote. Another creature you control dies. This deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain 1. Zulaport Cutthroat. Same thing. Blood Artist. Now this one's target player, but still it works. And then Pitiless Plunderer. You get a treasure, and that's a big deal, especially if you've got Shirei on board. This is 1 power, so it's going to come back if it dies. 4 toughness is not likely, but those treasures are going to help you recast your commander because, trust me, they are gunning for it. We have, how about when it dies? When creature dies. So, like Novice Occultist. When it dies, you draw a card and lose a life. Tattered Mummy. Each opponent loses 2 life. Nested Shambler. We're going to get some squirrels. Okay, we're going to get squirrel. Singular. But that's still, like the goblins and the servos and the squirrel, those are creatures that are going to interplay and leave play, so it's going to trigger all those abilities as well. Elvish Doomsayer. Each opponent discards when it dies. Serrated Scorpion. 2 damage to each opponent you gain. These things cycle so much back and forth. It was... I looked across at her, and her eyes were just kind of glassed over, and she's like, what? And, yeah. Abyssal Gatekeeper. I felt terrible, by the way, if that matters. Doom Dissenter. Just keep getting those zombies. Mirror Retriever, just in case we need to get some of our artifacts back. That's not all of our creatures. I do have just a couple generic Hired Poisoner and Freak Chosen. They're 1-drop, 1/1 Death Touchers. I figured the Mortician Beetle. Whenever a player sacrifices a creature, it's going to get big. This did some work. Blood Pet, of course, it sacrifices itself to get that 1 mana back. Falmar Knight. It's a 1/1 Death Touch, but it's also got that Profane Insight on there. And then the Death Cultist sacrifices itself. Target player loses 1. Now, I just want to get into the Beast. Singir the Dark Baron. This thing was a monster. Yeah, just an absolute monster. They are going to kill it. She was not able to, and it killed her. But yeah, with that many things dying and this getting 2 counters per death, That was sick. So let's look at our actual categories now, shall we? Oh, no, we have 3 more creatures. The skeletons that come back from the dead. You know, they're all 1 power. The Sanitarium, Clattering Augur, and the Persistent Specimen, you know, can just come back on their own. But we have the Bantu's Monument, because we are playing mono black. Charcoal Diamond, Dark Ritual, Leaded Mirror. Now, with this particular deck, Songs of the Dam is not a bad card. If you draw it early, you draw it late. Late's probably better than early, yeah. We have that Expedition map to go and try to get that Reliquary Tower. Maybe we need the Emergence Zone. I don't know. But my biggest mana ramp is, of course, Bellus' Citadel. I have trouble being responsible with it. I don't. I didn't draw it in the game that I played with this deck, but and it has sacrifice 10 permanents. So there again, if you get you see where I'm going there. A little bit of card draw, Sign and Blood, Read the Bones, Painful Lesson. I also have Dark Tutelage. The curve is very, very low on this deck, so I don't. And with a little bit of life gain that we've got, I figured Dark Tutelage, why not? Of course, Feed the Swarm. Tortured Existence, I drew it. I cast it. She destroyed it on turn 2 because she read what my commander did, and she was like, that's going to be a problem. So I didn't get to actually use it. Elixir of Immortality is in there just in case somebody gets Bajukabog ideas and takes out my yard while it's packed. Whispersil Cloak is in there just to protect Shirei. Yeah, she's a 2/2. We might get there with commander damage. Doubt it. Not what she does. And then our non-basic lands. Cycling lands, the Barren Moor, Desert of the Glorified, Polluted Mire, Spawning Pool, because, you know, it can turn into an emergency blocker if you need it. And then Witch's Cottage to get that creature back if we so choose. But yeah, I had no idea that Shirei. I know Chris has been after me to build this deck for a long time. Finally did. Got it done. My tokens there. I try to keep the tokens with the deck, but sometimes that doesn't always work. So let's go put Shirei on the wall. 858. I realize that this is not correct because I've got decks that we played. I'll fix that before the next video. I just wanted to play some of those decks, but I know that that's not where 8 belongs because there's only 2 more decks. And anyway, play them. What can I say? It's what good's a deck that doesn't get played, all right? But I do appreciate y'all watching, liking, subscribing. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching 13 minutes in, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But we're going to go ahead and shuffle and cut.